My wife has been telling a bunch of lies ever since we first met. I mean, every detail is part of it, from who she is to what happened in her life, her being unfaithful, and her promises to change. I talked to her many times, catching her when she's most open, hoping she'd tell the truth among all her lies. But sadly, those confessions were just more lies. I'm not a therapist, but I think she's got some serious issues. Probably histrionic personality disorder and a habit of lying a lot. Trust me, she shows all the symptoms. When we met, I had just ended a long relationship and was looking for something casual. Back then, places like Adult Friend Finder were where you'd go for quick connections. Being careful with money, I found her online username and started talking with her. We decided to grab lunch a few weeks later, which went well, leading to more dates. She mentioned having a male roommate, but I didn't really think much about it. I didn't feel like investigating further, being lost in my own gullibility. She talked about her past marriage ending because of her ex being unfaithful, leaving her in a tough spot, sharing a place with a roommate due to money issues. One night, early in our relationship, I was out with colleagues working on a project when she called, upset, and seemingly unable to be consoled. She revealed a shocking truth about her past that shook her whole identity. The guy she thought was her dad, whom I'll call Italian Dad, wasn't her real father. He was a guy her mom had been involved with while her actual dad was in prison. When her real dad got out of jail, he became her uncle, and Italian Dad became the father figure. Her real dad stayed out of her life while Italian Dad played the devoted father role. I was really into this woman. She had a bachelor's degree from the same university I went to, though a different campus, and later got a master's from Columbia University in NYC. After working in her field for a while, she got tired and switched to an easier job in retail. Our love was real. She decided to take birth control pills for a better experience for both of us. But things changed when she told me she was pregnant. I'm a loyal and honorable guy, committed to her. I had already decided to ask her to marry me. I wanted it to be a perfect moment, a romantic gesture that would blow her away. But with her being pregnant, emotions hit hard, and she was scared of me leaving her. Knowing her past struggles and guilt as an unmarried mom-to-be, I couldn't see her so upset. In that moment, I realized waiting for the perfect time wasn't an option. Without a ring, in our living room while she was crying, I proposed. It wasn't the grand gesture I had in mind, but at that moment, it was what she needed. Our son was born, bringing new energy into our lives and prompting us to establish a different routine. It was a busy time, typical for any new parent, but we made an effort to find moments for each other amidst the chaos. In the early stages of our relationship, she immersed herself in an online chat system with inappropriate conversations. She admitted being part of that community for a while and forming strong connections there. I understood the need for belonging, having my own online group, though it didn't involve inappropriate chats. I trusted her completely and expressed my approval. I even helped her create avatars for the site that matched its theme. Her passion for closeness was infectious and fueled my own desire, so I had no complaints. However, the lines between boundaries started to blur. Desperate to keep my wife happy, I remained silent about the things I noticed. One of the earliest issues unfolded a few months after our son's arrival. Coming home after a long day at work, I found her engaging in self-pleasure in our bedroom. Initially surprised, I thought about joining in, but then I saw her hastily concealing her phone, engaged in phone cheating with some mysterious man. I told myself to stay composed, thinking she was eager for a passionate encounter. But the memory lingered, etching itself into my mind. In the years that followed, including the present, I overheard secretive phone conversations where she spun captivating tales, creating alternate lives for herself and our family, entangling unsuspecting men in her web of fiction. Through a closed door, I caught wind of an intriguing conversation. She wove a tale of being a widow seeking solace in her family's mountain ski cottage, a story she often repeated. Astonishingly, this was her norm. Each time she effortlessly assumed an alternate persona, captivating these men. Sometimes real names were used, while other times she conjured up fictional identities. Her stories fluctuated between partial truths and complete fabrications. How she managed to juggle numerous plot lines, navigating the complexities from one day to the next, often with multiple individuals, remains a mystery. Now let's jump to some recent and egregious transgressions within our marriage. 3 years ago, I found myself away for the weekend, not too far off, visiting some friends. Usually on such occasions, which happened a couple of times a year, I'd spend the night there due to late hours and exhaustion. However, something felt off this time, like an unsettling itch beneath my skin. Her behavior and excessive texting, sharing unsolicited details about her evening, struck me as peculiar. She was unusually talkative, oversharing every minute detail of her night. That wasn't her normal self with me, so I knew something was wrong. It was around 1:30 or 2 a.m. when I made up my mind. I had to return home that very night. The drive was only an hour, and a strong cup of coffee would keep me alert. Let me recount a particular detail she shared with me. According to her, a friend I'll call Jane had visited that night. Apparently, Jane had brought along some Mary Jane, intending to indulge in a smoking session. Let me clarify, I've never dabbled in medicaments, nor do I condone any illegal substances, and she knows this all too well. In a subsequent text, she informed me that Jane would be spending the night as she was in no state to drive. It was around 3 a.m. when I arrived home, and to my surprise, there was not a single car in the driveway. A quick glance around the street revealed no parked cars nearby either. Where could Jane's car have vanished to? Entering the house cautiously, just in case I had missed something or my wife had picked up Jane earlier, I anticipated finding Jane dozing off on the couch. When I got to the couch, I noticed a troubling stain that looked like dried semen. To make things more puzzling, there was constant snoring from upstairs. Quietly, I went up the stairs, my instincts pushing me forward with a nagging suspicion. And there, next to my wife in our bed, was a total stranger, a man I had never seen before. It felt like the world was falling apart, heading toward an inevitable end. Seeking comfort, I went to my daughter's room. Yes, we had a daughter by then, but both kids were at my in-laws for the weekend, which was odd given my absence. Overwhelmed, I sat on a chair, buried my face in my hands, contemplating what to do for at least 30 minutes or more, grappling with a weighty decision. Despite starting calmly, I realized I couldn't stay composed. Determined, I burst into the bedroom, turned on the light, and landed a powerful punch on the intruder's head. The impact was so strong that my wedding ring flew off, making me wonder if it meant anything. Grabbing him by the legs, I forcefully pulled him out of my bed, telling him to leave immediately. I won't go into all the details, but looking back, I don't think he knew she was married. His genuine surprise at my presence was clear. Since he hadn't driven to our place, I reluctantly let my wife drive him home, though I should have insisted he walk or take a cab. After she returned, we found ourselves in the kitchen talking until dawn. She insisted nothing inappropriate happened, emphasizing they just got high and fell asleep. The puzzling part was that I hadn't caught them in the act, lacking concrete evidence for my suspicions. Strangely, the stain on the couch disappeared while I slept later that day. Additionally, a honeymoon photo that was missing from our fridge mysteriously reappeared. My mind was full of doubts about her, even before this incident. There were certain aspects of her life I avoided discussing, deeming them unimportant and not worth starting a conflict. However, it had reached a point where I had to confront her directly, seeking nothing but the unvarnished truth. One trivial matter bothering me was the high school she claimed to have attended. Despite her insistence on a specific Catholic school, I found no evidence, leading me to believe she went to the public school in her district, known for its poor reputation. I didn't care about the school. I just wanted the truth. She stuck to her story about the Catholic school, but what bothered me more was the mystery around her former roommate. Over the years, I discovered information that didn't quite add up, aligning too well with her ex-husband's life. I confronted her, suspecting the roommate wasn't real but her ex-husband. I believed I unknowingly became the other man, unintentionally ending her previous marriage. She vehemently denied it, offering a prepared story with slight alterations. With no concrete evidence, I chose to forgive her, convincing myself to rebuild trust for the sake of our relationship and children. Despite a shaken foundation, we moved forward, determined to press on. Months later, I overheard her talking on the phone, making up stories about a family vacation in a fake ski cottage. The absurdity hit me, knowing she had never skied, and her family faced financial issues. I confronted her outside our closed bedroom door, insisting she tell the truth. Initially, she denied the call, but as I recounted specific details, she couldn't hide her deception. Lying was her go-to defense. On my birthday, I found myself working from home. Coincidentally, she also had the day off. Yet I couldn't help but notice her constant texting, a mystery unfolding before me. How did I stumble upon this revelation? She handed me her phone, showing her inability to cover her tracks effectively. We had separate cell phone accounts but decided to combine them onto one service. Since my carrier offered a better deal, we planned to transfer her number to my account. While at home, we initiated the transfer, meaning her phone would be temporarily out of service. As I backed up her old phone to save her contacts and pictures, I received text messages from an unknown number, not saved in her contacts. The porting process took a few hours, causing her impatience as she was reluctant to stop her conversations with the new guy. After the porting process, a flood of text messages poured in, prompting her to respond vigorously, even sending hundreds in a single day. Unaware that my plan didn't include unlimited texting, I discovered hefty charges when checking our account usage the next day. Confronting her, I urged her to stop this costly behavior. It turned out to be another instance involving another guy, though the details blend together amid the recurring pattern. Once again, I confronted her, and once again, she promised to stop. 3 tense months passed, fueling my escalating paranoia. Whenever possible, I covertly checked her phone, going through emails, texts, and photos. Among them, I found explicit pictures not intended for me. In a nutshell, she went on a lunch date with a guy and later met at a nearby park. A message after their outing revealed her desire for a more intimate encounter, lamenting the presence of bystanders. That was the breaking point. During a subsequent call, I couldn't hide my anger. I stepped out of my office to express my frustration and confronted her about the lunch date and park rendezvous. Overwhelmed with guilt, she wept, fearing the end of our marriage. Once again, I relented, but I sternly warned her that no more chances would be given. This was the final ultimatum. That final chance lasted around 8 months, or perhaps even less, considering I caught her red-handed. But that brings us almost to the present. Did you know you can message people through Yelp? Well, she did, and apparently she was engaging in conversations with some local guy there. That's where I stumbled upon her most recent mischievous escapades. Soon after, she ventured into the realm of Kik Messenger. She even posted on Reddit, seeking out Kik pals, and it didn't take long for her to entice a few individuals. While I haven't closely monitored her activities on Kik, I do know she has been regularly communicating with at least 2 people, and their messages are far from innocent, just friends banter. Just the other day, she needed my assistance with her phone due to some issues she was experiencing. In no time, I stumbled upon a folder containing a collection of explicit photos and videos she had sent through Kik. However, it was after this revelation that I made the decision to divorce her. Since that night when I unexpectedly found her in bed with another man, forgiveness has been hard to come by. Despite my efforts to convince myself that trust is possible and her love for me is genuine, an inner struggle persisted. I had a deep-down belief that she would consistently resort to deception, creating a lasting sense of mistrust. Over the past few weeks, weighed down by years of lies, I reached a breaking point. After much internal debate and weighing pros and cons, I finally made a decision. With hesitation, I pressed the send button, sending a heartfelt message to her ex-husband via Facebook Messenger. Unsure if he would read or respond, I needed answers, and he had no reason to deceive me. To my surprise, within a mere 30 seconds I received the seen notification. Then, in just a couple of minutes, he replied, confirming that she had likely lied about him and his past. This was the conversation I had yearned for. Over the next hour and a half, we engaged in an open exchange, delving into every aspect. Remarkably, he even expressed a desire to meet in person for further discussion. It was a mutually beneficial conversation, addressing my lingering doubts about her and his own curiosities about me. I unknowingly played the role of the other man in her life. When I met her, she was still married and living with her husband. The so-called roommate turned out to be a complete fabrication. I conducted a thorough public record search on Spokeo and did find someone with the same name as the supposed roommate, living on the same street as one of my wife's previous addresses. However, her ex-husband had no knowledge of this person, leaving us to wonder if it was simply a bizarre coincidence or a neighbor he had never encountered. The truth about her father also came to light. The notion of an Italian father was entirely fabricated. Those alleged summer trips to Italy, they never occurred. In reality, she only visited Italy once as part of a school trip. Speaking of school, it turns out she did attend the public school I had suspected all along. And here's the kicker, she's not even a Catholic. So where did she disappear to during those times she claimed to be attending Sunday Mass? Probably out on more dates with random guys. And let's not forget about those 2 degrees she boasted about. After catching her with the lunch date dude, I demanded answers to the web of lies she had spun. One truth she reluctantly admitted was that she had no degrees at all. She claimed to have attended both schools but never finished either of them. However, her ex-husband revealed that she hadn't even attended those schools in the first place, just 1 semester at a local college, and that was the extent of it. So even when she tried to confess some truth to me, it was just a different set of lies. She's pulled this same stunt with her ex-husband repeatedly, ran up his credit cards and left them unpaid, relatedly basically drained my 401k through loans and early withdrawals she talked me into. Do I need to keep going on? It's all a lie. I've only scratched the surface here, but there's no time to go over all the countless transgressions. Let me share one more story she's told countless times. She claims to have lived in New York City during those days while not attending Columbia. According to her, she was in class when the tragedy happened, witnessing the fear and panic. She also mentioned knowing interns at the World Trade Center who didn't survive. She even claimed to have worked as an intern at the New York Times and had a shared byline on a front-page story published on the day after the event with the audacious claim that it was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. It's all a web of lies, ex-husband revealed that they never actually lived in NYC. They may have visited for some fun weekends, but they never resided there. This is deeply offensive to all the New Yorkers who experienced the tragedies of Twin Towers, and it sickens me to my core. So I've made the tough choice to end my marriage with my wife. No trial separation for us. I've given her plenty of chances to change, but it hasn't worked. Counseling won't help either. I've reached my breaking point. The trust between us is completely broken. It's heartbreaking for the sake of our kids, but it seems like the only way forward. I believe it's the right decision in the long run, but I'm honestly scared of the challenges ahead and the difficulties we'll all face. My love for my children is strong, and I only want what's best for them. Here I am, at the end of my sad story, ready for the next chapter. Where do I go from here? How can I navigate this process in the best way possible? Money is tight for me, living paycheck to paycheck. It would be great if we could avoid lawyers. Neither of us can afford one anyway. Will she play dirty when it comes to the kids? I can't predict that. The uncertainty is unsettling. Surprisingly, I don't hold any ill feelings towards her. Despite everything, I don't wish any damage on her. It may sound strange, but I don't want to fight with her once this is all over. I want us to maintain a mature co-parenting relationship after I express my desire for a divorce. I need her cooperation to ensure a smooth transition for everyone involved. There are a few challenges to consider. We don't have family nearby who can provide immediate support. They're not too far, but not close enough for us to stay with them if necessary. My wife works from home, so we need to figure out a solution for her to continue working without risking her job. She currently takes care of dropping off and picking up our kids from school, so any changes in our living arrangements must consider that. A close friend who went through a divorce last year advised me to wait until after the holidays for emotional support. Being alone during the holidays really sucks. Besides, it will give me some time to plan things out, hopefully. I need your advice on what steps to take next, any helpful resources, and ways to support my kids through this difficult time. When my parents divorced, I was 19 and managed to handle it as an adult. However, my younger brother, who was only 13 at the time, struggled a lot. Now my own kids are 5 and 8, and I'm really worried about how this will impact them. I'm seeking guidance to ensure their well-being. Please, help me. By the way, in case anyone wonders, yes, she had an Ashley Madison account, but I didn't need their data breach to find that out. I discovered it during the whole ordeal on my birthday. It was just one of the emails I came across while using her phone. Second story. Didn't expect to find myself in this situation, but here I am. Over the weekend, my wife, 38F, and our 13-year-old daughter visited her mom. I couldn't join due to work, so we decided it would be a girls' weekend for them. As a firefighter in a large southern city, I was on a call when the dispatcher informed me of an emergency. Though not needed on the call, I checked my phone and found several texts from my kid and a few from an unknown number. Through about 11 text messages, I discovered my daughter had gone ice skating, fallen, and broken her wrist. She's in the emergency room, but my wife is nowhere to be found. The unknown number belongs to a friend of my wife's, who went to the emergency room to be with my kid, the chaperone for the girls who had gone skating. I called this friend, and after much hesitation, she admitted my wife had gone to dinner with a random guy. Due to my job, our location is always shared with the family. I pulled up an address and found it's a hotel. It was 10 p.m. Now it's almost 4 hours later, and she hasn't answered my texts, but she did finally call our kid. I got permission and insurance information. My daughter got a cast and a referral to see an orthopedist when she gets home. The friend took our daughter back to her grandmother's and texted me, apologizing for the way I found out about that guy. Apparently, this has been happening every time she's gone home without me. Meanwhile, I've worked countless hours of overtime to pay off our house, take us on nice vacations, and send our daughter to the most expensive private school in our city. I feel like a fool. Following advice, I talked to a lawyer and realized she doesn't have much access to her money. I removed her as an authorized user of my credit cards, added two-factor authentication to almost everything else she might try to access. I checked my credit report and found she opened a joint credit card I didn't know about. Since I'm on the account, I logged in and printed out the charges, creating a perfect timeline of restaurants and hotels she paid for. Turns out she also has accounts on Tinder and Bumble, discovered through recent phone bills. A friend who is a deputy sheriff will be here tonight when she gets home. I booked her a hotel room for the week and paid up front. She can stay there for now and figure things out on her own starting tomorrow. My daughter and I talked, and she knows what's going on and is angry at her mom. The next steps are to find someone for her to talk to. Thankfully, my job provides excellent insurance, so that's one less thing to worry about. When it was time for my wife to return, I was prepared. An old friend, a deputy sheriff, agreed to be there during our confrontation. I had already reserved a hotel room nearby for a week, paying in advance. It was a chance for her to experience the uncertainty she had brought into my life. The confrontation wasn't pleasant. Despite her pleas and apologies, I remained unmoved. I handed her the hotel room keys, instructing her to pack and leave. Although she was shocked, I stayed indifferent. My daughter, full of anger, chose to stay with me. Later, I had a tough conversation with her mother. While defending her daughter initially, she eventually acknowledged the undeniable evidence I had collected. The following weeks were chaotic. Divorce proceedings started, and my lawyer was relentless. The evidence of her infidelity played strongly in my favor. I kept the house, my daughter stayed with me, and I secured a significant portion of our assets. Meanwhile, my wife's life took a downward turn. The man she betrayed me for turned out to be a professional con man. He vanished, leaving her heartbroken and penniless. It was a tough lesson, but she was reaping what she had sown. The revenge I sought came unexpectedly. I protected my interests, ensured my daughter's well-being, and exposed her infidelity. She faced the consequences of her actions while I began rebuilding our lives. The journey wasn't easy. The pain of betrayal lingered, but I was determined to move forward. I invested time in healing, reconnecting with my daughter, and learning to trust again. In the end, the best revenge wasn't causing her pain, but showing her she hadn't broken me. I emerged from the storm stronger and more resilient, ready to face whatever life had in store. Despite everything, I felt a strange sense of gratitude. The betrayal set off events that led to a better understanding of myself. I wasn't a fool, as I initially thought. I was a survivor.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.